Hello everyone, welcome back to science class. On last day we have discussed about the simple permanent tissues, right? Today we will discuss about complex permanent tissues. Complex permanent tissues are of two types, xylem and phloem. What is the meaning of complex permanent tissues? The tissues which are made up of more than one type of cells. These are called complex permanent tissues. Here we can see xylem is made up of these four types of cells: tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma and xylem fibers. Same here, phloem is also consists four types of cells. First is companion cells, sieve tubes, phloem parenchyma and phloem fibers. First of all, we will discuss about xylem. What is the function of xylem? Xylem transport water and minerals from the root to the all parts of the plant. It means the material can flow vertically only in xylem. But in phloem transport food from the leaves to the other parts of the plant. The material can move in both the directions, down to up and right to left and left to right. In both the directions, material can move in phloem. In xylem, tracheids and vessels, these are tubular in structure, and in phloem, companion cells and sieve tubes are also tubular structure and have perforated walls. Now see a short video to understand more about the xylem and the phloem.
Complex permanent tissue. Have you noticed that the different types of tissues we have discussed till now have one thing in common? They are all made up of one type of cells which look like each other. Such tissues are called simple permanent tissues. Yet another type of permanent tissue is a complex tissue. Complex tissues are made up of more than one type of cells. All these cells coordinate to perform a common function. Xylem and phloem are examples of such complex tissues. They are both conducting tissues and constitute a vascular bundle. Xylem consists of tracheids, vessels, xylem and xylem fibers. The cells have thick walls and many of them are dead cells. Tracheids and vessels are tubular structures. This allows them to transport water and minerals vertically. The parenchyma stores food and helps in the sideways conduction of water. Fibers are mainly supportive in function. Phloem is made up of four types of elements: sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem fibers, and the phloem parenchyma. Sieve tubes are tubular cells with perforated walls. Phloem is unlike xylem in that materials can move in both directions in it. Phloem transports food from leaves to other parts of the plant. Except for phloem fibers, phloem cells are living cells.
So students, till now we have discussed about the plant tissues. Now it is completed. Now we will start animal tissues. In animals, so many functions are there to perform. Like for protection we need tissues, For locomotion we need tissues. To send the messages from here to there in the body we need tissues. And to connect from all the parts of the body we need tissues. So different types of tissues are there in animal tissues also. The main first is epithelial tissues. Epithelial tissues are to protect our body, right? Second is connective tissues, to connect into the body, like blood. Blood flows in all over the body to connect from one part to the other part. Muscular tissues for the locomotion, and nervous tissues to send the messages from brain to the all parts of the body and from the all parts of the body to the brain. Now we will discuss epithelial tissues in brief. Epithelial tissues are the tissues which can protect our body. Like the outermost layer of the body is skin. Skin is made up of epithelial tissues, right? The lining of the mouth is also made up of epithelial tissues. The outer covering of the organs is also made up of epithelial tissues. Means this protect from one organ to the other organ to mix with that. So it works like a boundary also. Okay. So one more thing, the alveoli of the lungs are also made up of epithelial tissues. Now we will discuss about the types of epithelial tissues. It is also again divided into 4 types of tissues.
Chalo.
After learning about plant tissues, let us take a look at the various types of animal tissues in details. In case of animals, where the body is expected to perform uncountable functions simultaneously, it is obvious that the number of tissues will also be innumerable, right? So how do we study all these? Well, we don't need to worry. For simplicity, we would prefer dividing all the animal tissues into 4 major categories depending upon their functions. Firstly, we have the one for protection, then another for connection, followed by movement and locomotion, and lastly for transmission of signals for quick and efficient work. Based on this, we get the 4 major types of tissues as epithelial, connective, muscular, and nervous. So in this video, let's begin with the first type, that is the epithelial tissue. As the name says, epi is above, thus epithelial tissue is the one which lies above the entire body, forming a protective covering. Along with covering the body, it also forms a barrier between the various organs separating them. Now the structure of the epithelial tissue is quite evident from its function. Yes, since it has to perform a protective layer, it cannot afford to have spaces between the cells. Hence, we find the epithelial tissue to have tightly packed cells forming continuous sheets. The tissues lack intercellular spaces and has extremely small amount of cementing material. So every single substance that passes in or out of the cells needs to cross the epithelial layer at least once. Accordingly, the permeability of cells will differ in various epithelia depending upon the exchange of materials. Now, when we talk about all the epithelial cells in general, we need to first understand a common characteristic between them. May it be any different type of epithelia, all of them will always have the cells resting on a thin, fibrous supportive membrane-like structure. This is called the basement membrane. The basement membrane, apart from supporting, helps to hold the cells together in a single straight line to form a uniform and consistent layer. Okay, so getting back to the types of epithelia, in order to study them, let's take a simple example. Imagine this to be a basement membrane. Now, depending upon the functions, let's classify them. So let's say the first function is filtration. What kind of structure should be present according to you? Yes, it needs to be a very flat surface. So this type of epithelium is referred to as simple squamous epithelium. Now let's take up the next function, that is absorption and secretion. For this, obviously we would need a larger surface area, right? which is why we have these tall pillar-like cells on the basement membrane making up the columnar epithelium. Now at times, we need the strength or support along with the larger surface area. In this case, we slightly change the structure to cube-like cells and form the cuboidal epithelium. Lastly, we have certain organs that need specialized secretions. So in such cases, we need to modify a few cells that would perform secretion of specific chemicals like hormones or enzymes. These are called the gland cells, and the epithelium consisting of such type of cells is called the glandular epithelium. Well, this was about the epithelial tissue in short. Now let's meet up